guys, this is Jen Rzasa from Our Change of Art, and I'm so happy that Simon Says Stamp has invited me to be a guest for their Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember festivities. It's probably one of my favorite times of year other than Christmas for card making because there's just so much inspiration that you can find on the Simon Says Stamp blog for the month of September. So the card I'm going to be doing today is going to be using two different Altenew stamp sets. One of them is Sketchy Cities Abroad and the other is Superscript 2. Now I've mounted the Sydney skyline from the Sketchy Cities set onto a Fisker's stamp press, and that's because there's a lot of detail in this stamp and I want to make sure that I get to see all of those little details when I stamp onto my cardstock. Now I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to be coloring this in with Copics and the ink won't bleed if I use this type. Now I'm making sure to kind of support my hand underneath because of the flexible nature of the stamp press. If I just go on top, sometimes I miss spots. So I find that if my hand goes underneath, I can really support the stamp press from the other side and make sure I get good ink coverage. And now I'm going to be stamping onto some Nina Solar White cardstock. And I'm going to stamp this towards the bottom. I am going to be cutting it out, so I'm not too worried about the rest of the cardstock. I just kind of want to line this up with the bottom edge so that there's one less line for me to have to worry about cutting. Now because of the stamp press, I get to apply a lot of firm pressure on all areas of the stamp. And once it feels like I've kind of reached everything, it'll pop up. And now you can see I have a really nice, lovely, detailed image. Now I'll be using my tiny little cutter bee scissors here to cut this out. And I like using these because they have such a nice, fine, and sharp tip. And just give me a moment. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, leaving a tiny little border around the edge. So this only took about maybe a minute total to cut out. I wasn't too worried about keeping that border even. It's going to be mounted onto white cardstock, so you're not going to be able to notice it too much anyway. Now I have 4 different colors of Copic markers. I really like these fun bright colors. I know that it's almost fall and, or maybe it is fall. By the time this video gets published, it might be fall already. And these aren't really fall colors, but I love the warm weather and these colors just make me smile. So I have G02, YG21, YG23, and B12. And I'm going to be coloring this in, but leaving a few of the areas white so that it provides a little more interest and it's not too saturated with color. Now that I'm done coloring, I see that there's a few spots where I got outside of the lines. I'm really not the best with Copic markers, so I love to do this little trick. I'll just take some white gel pen. This is a Sakura Jelly Roll pen. And I'm going to go over the places where I got outside of the lines. And you're never even going to notice that I made a mistake. So I'm just going to put this aside and we're going to start working on the frame. I have a piece of the Simon Says Stamp black cardstock here that I cut to the front of an A2 size card. So it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I have this really great die from Little Inker Designs. This is one of their stitched rectangle mat dies. And it's just smaller than the front of this piece of cardstock. I'm actually going to put another color behind it so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to try to be as even as possible, but I'm still just eyeballing it. No need to measure. And I'm trying to get this centered right here onto the black cardstock. And I'm using a little bit of washi tape to secure it down. I often use painter's tape as well, but you know, some of this washi was just already on the side of my desk, so this works well too. A post-it note would also be great, any type of low-tack tape that you know will come off easily. Alright, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go ahead and die cut this. And here's what you're left with after die cutting. So I'm going to set aside this center piece. I'm not going to need it for this project, but I can certainly use it on something else. And I have my frame here. I'm just going to put this aside along with my skyline. Now I wanted to have a reflection so it looks like the buildings are being reflected into the water. So I came up with this little trick for an easy way of doing that. So here's just a plain piece of vellum. And I once again have my stamp that I was using before of the Sydney skyline. And I have this pool color. I wanted to use a light color, but something that was still strong enough so it could be seen through the back of the vellum. I'm going to ink up my stamp just like I did before. And now I'm going to stamp this upside down along the top edge of the vellum. I will leave a teeny tiny break right at the top. And apply firm pressure. And lift up. So now I have it upside down, but it's not going to be a reflection yet until it's backwards. But since the vellum is pretty much translucent, it's not completely transparent, if I flip it over, you can still see it. And now hopefully you can kind of start getting an idea of how our card is going to come together. Now because this is a slick surface, this is a little bit wet, so I'm going to allow this to dry and I'll be right back. Now I get to play around a little bit with how I want the card to look. I've taped my vellum down to my work surface, and now I'm going to put the skyline on top as well as the frame. This will help me kind of see how much room I have to play with. The sentiment I'm going to be using is also from Altenew. This is Thanks from the Superscript set. And this is going to get stamped right down here in the corner. So I have to decide if I want the skyline to be kind of near the top with a lot of reflection, or if I want it to be the other way around. I think I kind of want it to be centered, so the horizon is right about in the middle, just like that. And that way my sentiment can get stamped right over here. Now because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing, I need to use my Versamark ink. And this is just a really sticky ink that's going to allow the powder to adhere to the vellum. Now what's helpful is I can see through my grid mat, so it's going to be pretty easy to line everything up here. Okay, now I can carefully remove the tape and the frame. And now I'm going to be using some white embossing powder. Alright, when you weren't looking, I did a few things. I first prepared my card base. This is Neenah Solar White. And I put a strip of Simon Says Stamp Island Blue cardstock onto the lower half so that can go behind the vellum. Now since the frame is going to be covering up the outer edge, I can just use my regular adhesive and you're not going to worry about any of it showing. So I'm just going to put some up here and then around each side so that it's really firmly adhered down. The other thing I did was I just applied some foam tape to the back of my pieces that I want to be popped up. Now this is just going to get mounted right here. Try to keep everything centered. Okay, now I can finish assembling the card by adhering both of these last two pieces. And here is the completed card. I just love that reflection effect that we get with the vellum. I just want to say thanks one more time to Simon Says Stamp for having me as a guest today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.